This part of the video is going to look at the actual theories supporting learning. So looking at how adults learn. Adults learn in a very different way from children. We can't just learn by rote the way children do, repeating something over and over again. Generally speaking, for adults, we need to understand what we're doing, we need to see its purpose, and adults generally like to have control over what they're doing and to be more involved, and that we call experiential learning. So experiential learning is where you're actually involved in the learning process, and as the name suggests, you're actually experiencing it as you go through. So the two theories that we're going to look at more closely relating to that are experiential learning by Kolb and Honey and Mumford's learning styles. So Kolb's learning cycle, as I said, he believes that a person learns through finding things out and having experiences. So we want to look at something, we want to have an experience, but we then need to think about what we've done, how things can be improved. So my usual example would be if you were making a cup of tea for the very first time. You might know how to make a cup of tea, so you would have the knowledge. You would then want to try that out, put it into practice. So you'd make your cup of tea, you'd then sit down with it and you'd think, how's the tea? Is it good? Is it bad? How can I make it better? Would it be better if I added milk, made it stronger, had some biscuits? And then you might want to go and try it again, testing out your theories and putting them into practice to see how that works. So for Kolb, that is put into 4 stages, which we can see from the table in front of us. Generally speaking, the idea is that you can start at any point in the cycle. There isn't a beginning. So you can, depending on the experience, depending on what you're learning, you may start at different points. But the concrete experience would be you making your cup of tea. The reflective observation would be you drinking your cup of tea and assessing, has it worked? Could it be improved? Abstract conceptualization would be you coming up with a new recipe, an improved recipe of how to make it better. And then active experimentation is where you go and try it out, see if it's going to work. So Kolb's argument is for learning to be effective, you have to go through each of these 4 stages. You can't just go through 1 or 2. For the learning to be really, really effective, if you've got an employee and you're wanting to put them through learning, you want to know that it's something they can actually take back into the workplace, put it into practice, and things will be better. So for Kolb, we go through all 4 of these stages, and at the end of it, we should have had an enriched learning experience. Okay, so in terms of each of these 4 different stages, there are different types of activities that we can use to support the learning. So in each stage, the learning activities, the different ways that we learn will vary. So concrete experience would be practical exercises, problem solving, team games, discussion, debate, where people are actually involved in doing something. Reflective observation tends to be, as it says here, quiet thinking time. So taking time out, taking time to sit back and just think about things. As a trainer, one of the best ways that you can build that in is to have coffee breaks or tea breaks. That's why sometimes if I've been doing a lot of theory in class, I might give you a break. So that gives you time to recharge, but also gives you time to go away and think about what's been discussed, what we've been doing. So also you might have learning logs and diaries, and perhaps also to some extent writing up your assessments, writing a short report on what happened. So some sort of reflective account of what happened, what you did, to start then thinking about, well, how can I improve that? Which would feed into the active experimentation, abstract conceptualization. So abstract conceptualization. In this phase, it's all about theories, it's about models, it's about thinking about what you can do. So it might be a lecture where someone is presenting information. It could be concrete experience, could be us setting you a task where you have to go off and research something. Your reflective observation could be writing that up, putting it together, so you're preparing the presentation. And then the abstract conceptualization might be coming back and presenting the information that you've found, the theory, the research, the models. But under the abstract conceptualization, that's really where we're bringing all the literature, the theories and the models all together. And active experimentation, again, is putting things into practice, but it involves allowing enough time so that the learners can actually get involved. They can think about how things work. They want to see what's the best way forward to take things. So they need time to plan. They may be given case studies so they can actually think about it and come up with solutions. Think about how you would fix something. They might be involved in role plays. And sometimes as well, it could be that they're given real situations, real problems that they have to resolve. But each of these different types of activities belong under the headings that we see here. So we've looked at Kolb and the idea that a learner has to go through all 4 stages, but Honey and Mumford, linked to that model, also identified that as people, as learners, as individuals, we have our own preferred way of learning. And generally, we would get to a stage in the cycle where we feel most comfortable, where we fit most closely. So you're taking the model, but we're applying learning styles to people, and they will fit into one of the 4 different categories. So an activist is someone who wants to get stuck in, wants to do things, doesn't like reading. So if you're thinking, oh, I hope she doesn't send me to the LRC to do research, to read books, that is so boring, I want to be doing things, I want to be getting involved, and you get bored really, really quickly, then you would be an activist. A pragmatist wants to know how things work in practice, want to know that things will actually work. So you take a theory, but you then want to apply it. You want to see, is it going to work? Is it going to work out the way it's supposed to? So sometimes theories can sound good, but they don't always work in practice. So a pragmatist would be wanting to see, how does it work in practice? The reflector is a person that wants to take time to think about things. They don't like to be rushed. They want to mull things over and formulate ideas, perhaps. Your theorist loves the theories. They want all the information. They're quite happy to sit back and just listen to someone else talking about theories, or they're quite happy to go and read a book if that book's going to give them additional information. So you can see how these fit into the Kolb cycle. And the little diagram on the chart shows you where each of them sit in terms of the different stages of Kolb cycle. But as a learner, we have our own preferences, and there will be a questionnaire available on Moodle that you can complete to identify what kind of learner you yourself are. But the idea is, if we get stuck at whatever point in the learning cycle we are, so for myself, I'm a reflector. So if I started at the activist or the, what was it called? Concrete experience. So if I start at the concrete experience, I get stuck at the reflector stage. I get stuck at that stage and don't move on. But the argument is that then I'm not getting the full learning experience that I could get and that I would probably benefit from. But going through the theorist to pragmatist stages are more challenging because it's taking me out of my comfort zone. I I'm quite happy to take a back seat, to sit back and think and observe and listen. But you learn more if you do challenge yourself, and you can expose yourself to the different types of learning methods. So you don't just want to stick with the learning styles that, or the learning approaches that suit you best. You ideally are trying to push yourself. You're trying to think, right, if I'm a reflector and the activists terrify me, what kind of learning opportunities do activists look for? How can I try to benefit from that style of learning? And it may give me different experiences, and I'll get more out of it by doing that. But typically, each individual person has a preferred learning style. Okay, so that's us for the moment.